And I will. Yeah, thank you all. And the recording starts now. And we are pleased to have Rhiannon back to us again tonight. Rhiannon has experience working for 4 different organizations as a business analyst and consultant after graduation. They are grateful for the support and guidance they receive when transactioning in this career. And now they are dedicated to giving back to the community. Rhiannon's passion lies in helping others achieve their career goals. They offer peer-to-peer guidance in CV and cover letter writing, interview skills, and general career advice. Rhiannon is an aspiring change maker and advocates using their BA skills and influence to help advance LGBTQIA+, neutral diversity, and accessibility causes. Now let's welcome Rhiannon, and now I will hand over the talk to Rhiannon.
Kia ora. I hope you can see my screen right now. So I should probably actually go back one so that you can, I'll give you a moment to join the Q&A session with this little doodacky, a QR code. So I'll just give everyone a moment to do that. Okay, cool. So hopefully you've all joined. If not, someone might be able to put a link in the chat. But essentially, what I'm going to do is Karakia, and this Karakia is something, well, Karakia is something that we do in New Zealand at the start of our get-togethers, our events, our talks, our meetings, to kind of set the intention for the time together. And it's also quite spiritual for our Indigenous people. And it's just a nice way to incorporate our Indigenous culture and pay respects to the people whose land we're on. So, whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki utu, kia mā taratara ki tai, ihi aka ana te uru kura, hi te o, hi huka, hi ho, tihi Māori ora. And please forgive me, I'm still on my Te Reo journey, so no doubt there was, that wasn't perfect, but we're all learning and improving in different things at different times. So essentially, I kind of fell into CV writing and interview prep, just helping people. I found out that I was quite good at it. And so I just continued helping people. And the more I helped people, the more I was like, this is nice. So I want to continue to help people. So I used to really, really want to be a scientist. I had this dream since I was like 13 years old. And so at school, I did all the science subjects and I worked really hard, and I went to uni and I did a Bachelor of Science and I worked really hard and I did all the things that you're meant to do. I got job placements. I worked at ag research over the summer and I graduated. And then I ended up working in these commercial laboratories, and my role was pouring out things, weighing things, pipetting things, and getting rid of things. And that's not why I decided to do science. I wanted to change the world, to have a positive impact, to do things in research that would, feed people, because I really wanted to be an agricultural scientist here in New Zealand. And instead, I was pouring out samples. And so I thought, oh God, I'm going to need to rethink this. And so I went on a little finding myself mission, and I ended up working at the Department of Conservation as a statutory process advisor. Wasn't related to what I had studied, But it was at doc, and I thought maybe one day I'll be able to worm my way over to the science side. And while I was doing that job, I started doing little things that helped me in my role and sharing it with my team. My boss noticed this. I got put forward as a subject matter expert in some improvement work, and I got exposed to the amazing world of business analysis. And I thought to myself, oh, geez, this is actually tickling all the same bits of my brain as science was, right? You see an opportunity or a problem, you form a hypothesis. What's the possible solution here? What could be going on? You do a bunch of testing, you figure out what the results of that testing were, and then you implement something different and you make a change. And that's what I saw in business analysis. And I was like, this is exciting. This could be a career for me. And so I looked into it, and I ended up going to the Victoria to do my master's in professional business analysis, which I'm sure some of you will be doing. And I decided to just spend a year and a half of my life just completely dedicated to this. I thought, I'm going to give it my best go. And if it doesn't work out, I'll go back to science. You know, I've just wasted thousands of dollars, but whatever. You know, if I give it my best go, I'll know that I've tried my hardest. So I did this course. I met a bunch of wonderful people, including Sophie, who's the founder of this group. And I ended up having my last placement with MPI, and that placement turned into a contract. And then before I had even finished my course, I had a job offer at MSD. And I knew, because I got that contract, hey, I can actually do this job. Which was just a huge confidence boost, which was really amazing. And so I have had a couple of jobs since then, you know, contracts and whatnot. And I really love this profession. And I met quite a few people while I was studying who helped me get into it. And so that's part of the reason that now I want to give back, right? Because people spent their time on me, so I'm going to spend my time on others. So that's my story, my spiel. I had to break a lot of stuff down for myself on that journey. So yeah, now I'm just passing that on. And I'm taking this year kind of off my professional life, off my extracurriculars, off going to every talk that's on, to focus on wedding planning. I'm getting married in I think around 100 days now, in December. So that is a huge project to undertake. It requires full project management and dedication. I wasn't going to pay someone for it because I've got those skills, and, you know, cost of living crisis. So let's start the talk. Cracking the interview code, excelling in a competitive landscape. It is hard out there. I think the job market has changed quite a bit since I graduated a year or two ago, or however long. There are less roles now, and there's more people. So that just means that you have to work a little bit harder, but there's still lots of opportunities. Business analysis is an absolute cracker field. We need more people doing more analysis. We have more technology than ever. We're in need of more systems and processes than ever. So it's a great field to be going into. So I really like metaphors. I'm a big metaphor person. They don't always make sense. Sometimes I stretch them on for too long. This one's probably an example, but I really enjoyed it. So you wouldn't enter a marathon without training. So please, for the love of God, do not go to an interview without doing some preparation. People do it, and it's a great way to just set yourself up for failure and, you know, bring yourself down. So research the company and role like a runner studies the course. Prepare answers for the diverse questions like a runner trains different muscles, and plan thoughtful questions just like a runner plots the race tactics. So it's like a marathon. Acing an interview requires careful preparation. In the end, it's your preparedness that will set you up to run this professional race. And if you train well for your interview, you'll come away from it feeling better. So this evening, we're going to talk about the power of your story. We're going to talk about the purpose of interviews, how to craft an impressive interview strategy, the art of answering interview questions. And then we're going to do a little mock where I'm going to ask the bravest of you to attempt to answer some questions. And in exchange, I'll help you out with it. And then I'll talk about what you do after you've done all of this amazing stuff and you've had your interview and you feel good about it. So, the power of your story. I just did in that introduction pretty much what I'm telling you to do here. Your story, your answer to tell me about yourself, it's who you are, your journey so far, and why you're the ideal candidate. So I told you about who I was, my journey so far, what led me into business analysis, some of my achievements, and why I'm the right person, why I have any business telling you how you should do interviews. So your story is powerful and unique. It will make you stand out in an interview. And this is how you craft your professional and personal narrative. It's not a recital of your CV. If your CV and cover letter is the movie, then this is the movie trailer. You've got to present a clear and compelling narrative of your professional journey. It should cover your interest, your experience, and your suitability for the role. Like any good story, it's how you practice it. The more comfortably you can tell your story, the more engaging it will be. I might have blabbed on for a little bit too long, but that's the story I've been telling, and now I know it off the back of my hand, and I would like to think it's quite engaging. Your narrative is your power. So by sharing your unique journey, you can show employees why you're the ideal candidate for the role, even and especially if it's a different role or industry than the one that you came from. They might be giving you a chance thinking, well, this person might be right for the role. And this is your chance to just convey to them what makes you different and what transferable skills you can bring, and really drawing that picture for them. So connecting the dots. So an example I've came up here with is I'm an ambitious professional and a business analyst graduate. I'm passionate about leveraging my skills for community benefit. As a service manager in an XYZ company, I used to use my analytical skills to boost check-in process efficiency by 30%. And with my industry experience, education, and understanding of diverse cultures, I can bring fresh perspectives to your team. So you can see how you now start to formulate answering that question. So what is the purpose of interviews? We can understand that by looking through 3 different lenses: technical ability, culture fit, and relevant experience. So technical ability is basically just showing that you've got the skills. So show off your job-related skills and how you'd handle tasks. And it may include case studies or problem-solving skills. Some places will have 3 different interviews. One of them will be about your experience, and one of them will be technical, and one of them will be something else. So it's you're going to come across that. They might ask you to do a test. It's something that happens. Or they might just ask a lot of behavioral questions, which we'll go over later. Culture fit. So this is what I sometimes refer to as vibes. Do they like your vibes? Do you like their vibes? Are your vibes vibing together? So you've got to show that you have shared values, attitudes, and behaviors with the company. You're not just filling a role, you're joining a community. Also, in New Zealand, we have a unique New Zealand context, which is Te Tiriti o Waitangi. And it's just important, culture fit is just as important as your skills and experience. If you were the most skilled business analyst in the world and you had the most relevant experience in the world, but the way that you behaved or the things that you valued were completely different to the organization you were going for, they're probably not going to hire you. If they're all about service and you just want to get the job done, then it's not going to be a good fit. And then your relevant experience. So like I said before, this is really your opportunity to link your past to your potential future contributions. So highlight those experience, highlight those transferable skills, even from different jobs or areas of your life. So it's just as important as your skills and your experience. And New Zealand has a unique mix of Māori, Pacific, European, and Asian influences. So you need to be prepared to work with a diverse team and understand how that dynamic works in the workplace. The Treaty of Waitangi is a foundational document in New Zealand. It's important to understand what type of workplace you're interviewing for, as most government departments, some banks, and some large organizations like One New Zealand, who were previously Vodafone, have made commitments to honour Te Reti. So after many years of disempowerment for our Indigenous people, there is now an effort to incorporate our country's Indigenous culture into our workplaces and the way that we operate. So more and more culture fit isn't just about getting on with the team, it's also about understanding New Zealand's unique culture and the role of the treaty in our workplaces, even if you're from somewhere completely different. So even the most casual interview is not a simple chat. You need to be thinking about these things. So how do I craft an impressive interview strategy? Well, you need to do your research. You've got to start by learning about the company and the role. So when you're writing your amazing cover letters and your amazing CVs, save that job description, give it a good name, because as soon as that job goes offline, sometimes that JD disappears. And if that JD disappears, you're at a real disadvantage for preparing for the interview. The job description usually has a good whack of information about the company and what it values, and information about the exact role you're going for. My role now as an operational business analyst is very different to when I was a technical business analyst, and it's different from being a process-based analyst, although there is a little bit of process in my current role, quite a bit of process in my current role. There's quite a bit of process everywhere. Process is really important. Anyway, so that JD will tell you exactly what the key competencies are for the role. So understand their values, the work they do, and what they're looking for in an employee. Try to get a feel for the company culture to better tailor your answers. If you can talk to someone who works there, that would be a great opportunity for you to ask about the company culture, what their top buzzwords are, what their top priorities are, what's hot at the moment, what's their mission, what's their vision, if you can't find that other places. But there's a lot of places where you can look to get this information from. The website, social media, even news articles, LinkedIn, annual reports, operational plans, employee reviews on Glassdoor. Glassdoor is a really good check if you're wanting to get into a place that has a really good culture fit for you. You can generally see if it's a good place to work or if it's a bad place to work. People are quite honest on there. So take a look at the job description and jot down the key skills and competencies it requires. Then come up with 1 to 2 examples from your professional life or your volunteer work or your personal experiences or your academic background. It can really be from anywhere. Prepare those specific examples to showcase your skills and abilities and how they relate to the job. Plan your questions. So an interview is a two-way street. You want to ask smart questions to show that you understand the role and that you're interested in the company. But you also want to ask about the things that matter to you to make sure that their job and that their environment aligns with your wants and needs. I know everyone sometimes just feels like, oh, I really want to get a job, but sometimes getting the wrong job is worse, way worse than just holding off until you find something that you're suited to more. So keep in mind that it's a two-way street. So you should ask questions about the things that matter to you. So if you have kids and you need to go at 3 p.m. to pick them up every day, then ask about flexible working hours to make sure that you can start at 7 and finish at 3. If you hate drinking and every social event involves going out to a bar, then that's probably not going to be the best fit for you. Remember, it's not a Q&A session, it's a conversation. And your strategy should enable you to present your best self and demonstrate your fit with the team and display your understanding of the company and the role. So, nailing the interview basics, the essentials, punctuality, you have to be on time. Now, I'm a bit of an anxious person, so I always show up 45 minutes early, and then I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do with the next 40 minutes? Presentation, dress fittingly, show open body language, and keep eye contact. If you're not sure what type of dress code they have, go for a little visit to the office if you can. Just walk past it and see what everyone's wearing. And I've got an asterisk there because for some people, keeping eye contact is not something that they're comfortable with. If you are disabled or neurodiverse and you have accessibility needs, don't hesitate to contact the employer and ask for reasonable accommodations. They have to give you reasonable accommodations under the law. And if they don't, it's probably not the type of place that you want to work for anyway. For example, if you're neurodivergent and maintaining eye contact is a challenge, communicate this with the interviewer beforehand. Just send an email, say, FYI, I'm neurodivergent. I find keeping eye contact very difficult. It's not because I'm not paying attention. Thanks. And then if they notice that you're not making eye contact, they can just move past it because they know that's not one of your skills, but it's not that you're disinterested. Positive attitude, even if you've been to 20 interviews that week, you've got to show a positive attitude and excitement and interest in the role. They're really invested in filling this role with the right person, so you should be really invested in getting the role. Preparation, the research that we've talked about, practice. Science shows that practice is the biggest and most important thing for building up your confidence and feeling better about it. Personal examples. So what we've talked about, use your own experiences to show your skills and values. So there are a couple of different types of interview questions. There are the kind of standard or compulsory questions like, tell me about yourself. Why do you want this role? What do you know about the company? There are behavioral questions. So they delve into your past actions in specific situations. There are situational questions. So these are hypothetical scenarios to test out your problem solving and decision-making skills. There's no right answer. And then there's technical questions. So these are the role-specific questions to assess your technical competency in business analysis. So when you get behavioral questions, you should always answer using the STAR method. So that's situational, set the scene, task, what you needed to achieve, action, what you did to handle it, result, share the outcomes or wins or lessons learned. It doesn't always have to be a good story. Sometimes something might have gone tits up and you actually learned something really important from that experience. That's just as valuable a story to tell to an employer because it shows that you can overcome adversity and that you can learn from your mistakes. So it's a really good method to tell a complete story, and it's a great way to demonstrate your problem solving and critical thinking skills. So a behavioral question could be something like, can you describe a time you handled a difficult situation? So you could answer, and I'm just putting these words here, don't actually say this, or you could, but situation, I once had to deal with a disgruntled customer in my previous role. Task, I was tasked with resolving the issue and ensuring customer satisfaction. Action, I calmly listened to the customer's concerns, apologized for any inconvenience, and proposed a solution that aligned with our policy. Result, the customer less satisfied and our team reviewed the incident to prevent that situation in the future. So even though that's coming from more of a service example, you can see how it would be applicable to stakeholders in a business analysis sense. The situational questions could be something like, what would you do if you missed a crucial deadline? And could be something like, technical questions could be something like, tell me about agile methodology. So now we're going to do a little role play exercise. So what I was hoping is that I would be able to ask someone one or two of these questions, and then they could answer, and then we could workshop how we might be able to improve that answer. Or if you just bang on, we can all celebrate you. Who would be keen? Would anyone be keen? Any hands up? Any volunteers?
Yeah, so there is hands up that you can choose in the reaction part if you're interested in to be the volunteer. Any volunteer?
That's okay. I did prepare for this eventuality. So, Lavender, do you want to pick a random question and ask me?
Okay. So I will just ask the question and then you will answer it. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So can you share an example where you use your analytical skills to influence a business decision?
Mm-hmm. So when I was working at the Department of Conservation, I was working in the statutory processes team, and they took in all the applications for all activities on conservation land all over the country. And what I started to notice was that there are a lot of applications coming through for people to fly drones recreationally on dockland. And we didn't have a form for drone use. We had a form for commercial filming, and we had a form for aircraft. And what happened was we were getting applications, some on aircraft forms, some on filming forms, and we were never actually getting the information that we needed to process the specific type of permit. So once I noticed this, I raised it with my manager, and I kept an eye on it, and I gathered some stats. And I recorded things like how many we got, how long it took us to process them, and what information was missing. And then I took that to my manager and said, hey, I really think that we need a recreational drone form because we're getting this many applications. It's taking this much time to process. We're spending all this time going back to people because we're not asking for the right information, because we previously hadn't thought about this because drones didn't exist. But now everyone, all of the German tourists that are entering New Zealand are bringing a drone and they want to film on dockland. And she took that to her boss, and then to her boss, and up and up. And then it came back down. Okay, good idea. Yeah, great. Let's get a project going. And so I worked on that project, and we came up with a recreational drone form, and we launched it. It made my life easier because I saved a bunch of time. It made the applicants' lives easier because they saved a bunch of time, made the rangers' lives easier. And so we ended up with a new system. And if you go on the DOC website today, that drone form is still there, and I'm very proud of it. So that's when I used my analytical skills to influence the business to make a big change in its processes.
Oh, thank you. That's so good to hear about it.
Cool. So you've done all this amazing stuff. You've gone to the interview. You feel good about it. Sometimes success isn't getting the job. Sometimes success is just feeling good about it. I've mucked up a lot of different interviews. Well, I've mucked up some different interviews over the years. I've learned in a trial of fire. But now when I go to interviews, I usually finish them and I feel really good about them. And to me, that's success. So some people swear by sending a follow-up message. I don't do this. I don't think it influences things. If you talk to hiring managers and they really care about that, then That's not something I've heard, but some people swear by it. Reflect on your performance. So run a little retrospective with yourself. What things went well? What might you need to improve on? Make yourself prepared for future interviews. If they asked a question and you didn't have an answer for it, then make sure you have an answer for the next time you get that question. Prepare for the next steps. So find out what comes next in the hiring process, such as further interviews or a job offer, and then think about negotiations or what you're going to do in that technical test, and improve your skills. So keep iterating and you'll increase your chance of landing a job in the future. So is there a rule or common practice that an interview shouldn't be longer than X minutes? No. I've been to interviews that are 20 minutes. I've been to interviews where they give you a full hour. It really kind of depends on the organization. Go off by how much time they've given you. If it's a 20-minute interview, obviously don't spend 10 minutes answering each question. If it's a hour interview, you can spend a bit more time answering question. Look for the interviewer's body language. Try to get your answers succinct. So I'm a little bit waffly, but it kind of works out for me most of the time. But I do try to remember to keep it kind of succinct in an interview. And usually if you've done your prep, so you understand what types of questions might come up at you. So you can do stuff like copy the JD into ChatGPT and say, give me interview questions associated with this job description. And then you could practice answering those things. You can, when you pick out those key competencies, if it says that you're going to do a lot of project management or a lot of data analysis, go online, look up top questions about data analysis. Just go on general websites and look up business analysis questions. And yeah, so once you've kind of got that practice, you're using the right formats, then you're not going to go on for too long, generally. What things should we pay attention for a casual coffee/office chat? Really, all the same things, just kind of at a bit of a small scale. So you still want to be doing all of your essentials, but they will probably not ask too much about the technical side of things. I would think in a coffee chat, I think that's just kind of a getting to know you. So be prepared for it to be a bit more conversational than a regular panel interview would be. So you might end up talking about your dogs or the books you like in your spare time, rather than what you would in a panel interview where you're very much giving those star kind of answers. So just don't be shocked if they start asking about what Netflix you're watching at the moment. Well, there's a lot of questions coming through. Could one of my lovely hosts let me know what are the top questions at the moment? I'll get on my slider. Sorry, team. How do you normally prepare for an interview? You've just got to do those things I talked about. Look at the JD, pick out those key competencies, prepare your story about yourself, and practice. Like science says the best thing you can do to increase your confidence in an interview setting is practice out loud. Practice with your flatmate, practice with your cat, practice with your parent, practice with a random guy on the bus. At any time that you can spend thinking about what you could say in response to common interview questions is time well spent in preparing for an interview. Okay.
Yep, so here has one said, what is the most difficult question you were asked during your interview? How did you tackle it?
Oh, that is a difficult question to answer about a difficult question. As honestly, as soon as I get out of an interview and I do my little analysis on what could I have done better, what went well, I kind of forget about it. I kind of just boop, straight out of my brain. Difficult questions are generally the ones that tell me about something that didn't go right, because you can get really accidentally dragged into the detail with those, and you don't want to get dragged into the detail. You want to be like kind of more high level, and you don't want to fall into the trap of negging on anyone. So being like, oh, this person at my uni, she never did any work. It really bummed me out, and that's when I had to deal with a difficult person like that doesn't make you look or sound so good. You have to be like, I worked with the person, they often didn't do what they said they were going to do, so we tried different communication tactics. I tried to figure out what worked best for them, and in the end we came to a middle ground and we got the project done and we got a B plus or whatever. Yeah. Or sometimes they'll ask you why you left your last job, and that can also be quite a difficult thing to deal with, if you left your last job because you're just feeling a bit crap there. So you kind of have to come up with like something that's a little bit creative and kind of a positive spin, but not to completely gloss over it. You just be like, well, I felt like I wasn't getting the opportunities that I wanted in that role, and I really align with your mission.
Yeah, that's how to answer a question that I do not have experience.
Experience can come from anywhere, okay? Experience just doesn't have to be in a workplace setting. If you spend a lot of time at your church, if you spend a lot of time in your marae, if you volunteer, if you're an Uber driver, if you're living at the moment, you're doing a bunch of different things. Maybe you're like Sophie and you love running up mountains for fun. If they ask you about a really specific scenario that you haven't done before, try to think of the next closest thing, something kind of analogous, and answer the question with that. I can't think of an example. Yeah, like someone hit me with something that I can't have possibly done, and I'll give you an analogous something. Anyone got a hard question for me? No.
Yeah, so go ahead, Ray.
If someone was to say, if someone was to say, well, actually, do you know what? I'll give an example from when I was at uni. Okay, the first time I was at uni, we had this assignment which was about a difficult situation in your workplace. Because I was really focused on science, I had only worked in labs. And so everyone else in my class just had a story about when a customer was angry with them. I worked in a fertility clinic at the time as a lab tech, so I hadn't witnessed any negative customers. But what I had as an awkward or less than great experience in my workplace was someone trying to hand me their specimen when they were meant to hand it to someone else in the lab, and I had to be like, no, sorry, that's not me. That's the embryologist. I can go get them. But this person was really embarrassed. And so they were like, no, you take it, and trying to hand it to me. And I was trying to put my hands behind my back. And that was like quite an awkward experience for me. So I didn't have something that was like, oh, a customer was angry with me. I had to think quite creatively about something that was a little bit less obvious, and then talk about how I tried to handle that situation with grace. Okay, and hit me with a different question.
Okay, and what are your personal tips around the what's your biggest weakness question?
Okay, so you have to be honest, and you can't just say something that's terribly generic. This question is, I haven't come across this question in a while. I think it's kind of going out of style. But think about genuinely what your biggest weaknesses are, and then think about the things that you do to mitigate those weaknesses, because that mitigation is the answer. So if I say, sometimes I can be quite reactive. If I'm feeling really annoyed by someone or something, I know that I have to go take a walk around the block, or I have to give myself some time to cool off before I deal with that situation, because otherwise I'm not going to be explosive or anything. I might just be a little bit snarky. So I know that about myself, and it is a weakness of mine, but I've got things that I do to make sure it doesn't impact my job. So follow up your biggest weakness with the things that you know that you can do to not let that impact you too much. And that's how you answer that question. So be honest, think about the things that you do to solve that problem with yourself, follow up, show a good level of self-awareness. It's the people who are like time management, and I make sure that I book everything in my calendar. That's kind of a bad answer. It's too generic. It doesn't tell them anything about you. Everyone puts stuff in their calendar. Everyone finds time management a bit hard. But also don't be too honest. Don't be like, oh, I really love to sleep in. I always sleep in until 9, but I make sure that I'm logged in at 8:30. Bad answer.
Log in last minutes before work.
You can say I'm very tired in the morning, so I always make sure that I set 5 alarms, but it can be a bit difficult for me to get up sometimes. So I make sure I have my partner as a backup. Maybe that's a better answer.
And the other one?
How to land interview invite when you have a long career in other vertical, e.g. testing. Matey potato, you're doing a lot of business analysis and testing. When I was last in a technical BA role, I was doing a ton of testing, and like sometimes as a technical BA at some point in the project, that's what you'll end up doing, just testing things, because your coders are busy and you have to get stuff to the end users, and so you do it. So you really just need to think about those transferable skills. Think about how you can craft your narrative towards that business analysis side. Reframe your CV. So one thing that you can do, again, ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT is a great tool, but it can also be a bit misleading. Sometimes it sounds great, but it's actually technically like quite bad in terms of plain English and whatnot. So you can use it for inspiration. But one thing that you can do is you can copy the text from your current CV and put it in there from your job descriptions and say, rewrite this to align with the skills of a business analyst. And so instead of saying managers stock at the coffee place, it will pop out something like keeps inventory with a digital management system, and works with customers like and stakeholders and stuff. You can twist any experience that you have to be more aligned with where you want to go. It's just about how you word it and and identifying those commonalities, because there's tons of stuff that I did in science, which people would think has no applicability to me as a business analyst today. But I can talk about those things I did in science, like going and reverse leaf blowing, so basically vacuuming fields to get insects to put in our trials, doing that type of work, doing those trials, getting those results. I'm a reasonable data analyst because of that work that I did in science, vacuuming up insects from fields. How do you counter if you're told you're overqualified for this role, especially if you're trying to get a job in New Zealand? Honestly, if someone tells you you're overqualified for the role, do you even want to work in that place? That hiring manager's just being a bit of a dick. For some reason, they're trying to put you off the role. I don't know why. Maybe they don't like your vibe. Maybe they're afraid you'll upshow them. Maybe they're just one of those managers that's totally coasting by, and they're scared if they get someone who's really qualified, it's going to show that they're coasting by. If someone says to you, you're overqualified for this role, forget them. Go, like, keep trying. Like, sometimes it takes time. I have a good role now, and I've had some good roles in the past. And behind those good roles is like 20 other job applications and 4 other interviews. Keep going. You'll find someone who's not going to tell you you're overqualified. It's a stink thing to say. Unless they follow up, you're overqualified with, would like to offer you a senior position, in which case, sweet.
There's another one. How does your BA role differ from a process-oriented role?
So when I was at MSD, in the section of MSD I was in, because MSD is huge, and there are business analysts there who will never meet each other because they work in completely different parts of the organization doing completely different things. In the part that I was in, my job as a BA was to gather requirements. And then they had a whole business process mapping team who did the business process mapping. And then they had a whole team who found the solutions. So I didn't like that job. I ended up leaving after 4 months for a number of reasons. But to me, I like a role where I can do a number of different things. Some places will really separate the roles out. In my current job, I have to be a UX designer, I have to be a project manager, I have to be a process mapper, I have to be information architect. And even though it's kind of stressful, I also kind of love it. I could not stand just being a requirements gatherer. So what was the question again? Process. So if you're in my current role, I deal with policy, I deal with all sorts of things. If I was in a process-based role, I would just be, so there's like policy, and then there's guidance, and then there's process, and then there's other stuff like the information architecture and whatnot. I'm dealing with a big pie. If you're a process person, then you're dealing with a small part of that pie. That's kind of the best way that I can explain it. Someone else is going to be dealing with those other things, and they're going to come along to you and say, this is the policy, or this is the guidance. How do we make that work? What's the process? Whereas I'm thinking, what's the policy? What's the guidance? What's the process? What's the tech we need behind that process? BAs can do all sorts. We're really cool. And we're really versatile if you let us be, if you're not just shoving us into being a process mapper or shoving us into being a requirements gatherer.
And how important the role of recruitment agency in hiring in New Zealand? Does company prefer recruits by agencies over direct applicants most of the time?
No. No. So when places are first starting out, or they're having a really hard time trying to find people, they might go through a recruitment agency. But most of the time, they place jobs directly to the marketplace, and that's just because it's less expensive to do that than to go to a recruiter. A lot of government departments straight to the market through the government job website. Can't remember what it is at the moment. Maybe someone nice will put it in the chat. Recruiters are nice, right? I got my current job through a recruiter, and that was a really positive experience. But before that, I found that like 99% of recruiters are the recruiters that come on this channel and do BA talk up. So I'm going to have a very different answer. But most of the time, they haven't found me roles. They've kind of come up with something, and then it's fallen off their plate, or they've found someone else. So they're the only person who 110% wants to get you a job is you. Recruiters, they've got like maybe 50 other people, and their main customer is actually the business. So I get calls from recruiters all the time. They see my LinkedIn profile, they see my Seek profile. Seek is a really good place to put a profile if you're interested in working with recruiters. And they just present you options, and then maybe some of those options will turn into opportunities, but you have to be out there doing the mahi, looking for the roles if you want to roll in New Zealand. Don't rely on a recruitment agency. If you rock up to a recruitment agency, you give them your CV, you're going to be waiting a long time before you actually get a job, in my opinion. That's just my experience.
Cool. So let's just answer last two questions. Then it's time to end our session. So for the one is during the interview, do you think getting the interview to talk more is a good sign to get the final offer? And if so, how to lead this trend?
So at the end, when they say, do you have any questions for us? Can be a really good time to be like, so can you tell me about what you did before you got to this role, or what your journey and your career has been, or talk about the workplace culture. If you can get again, it's kind of coming back to that vibe, right? If you can get a good vibe going on with them at the end, once you've kind of gone through the most interviews, they have a piece of paper in front of them. The piece of paper says the questions that they have to ask, and so that process can be kind of not as free flowing. But once they get to that point of the interview, that's when you can get a bit creative and kind of have a bit of a chat. You can like go as far as to say, like, I'm a real dog lover. How does your team feel about dogs? And if they've got a dog, then they're gonna jump straight in, or any type of pet. I've been really lucky in the last couple of workplaces I've worked at. They all, like, my team loves dogs. This is great because I love dogs. So does it necessarily equate to getting the job at the end? No. Unfortunately, interviews, it's always a bit of a lottery, because there might always be someone who's better than you at something, and they might get it. But that doesn't mean you didn't do a good job. That just means that they were a bit better in a specific instance of applying for the specific job at the specific time. But if you get a good conversation going with the interview with the hiring manager, then you're filling that kind of cultural fit, that kind of vibe tick. So it's a good thing to do. And if you try to start a conversation with them and they're really not participating, then maybe that tells you a lot about them as well. If they're like a really stagnant person who doesn't want to talk about dogs, maybe that's not the best place for you to work, because sometimes you might want to talk about dogs.
Cool. And last one, would you prepare for an online interview any differently? Do you think being interviewed virtually is more difficult than meeting in person?
I'll tell you how you prepare for an online interview differently. You don't have to put on your best pants. Legitimately, the only thing that you should be doing differently on an online interview is that you don't have to worry about your pants. Everything else is the same, apart from, instead of making sure you get there early, make sure that your tech works early. If they say, we're going to video call you on this obscure software called Noom, then you better make sure that you have Noom downloaded a day before the interview, and you're not trying to download Noom 5 minutes before the interview, so you have to text and be like, oh my God, technology problems. Don't wear your best pants, and also make sure you've got the tech downloaded. Make sure you've got a good microphone. Make sure that you can sit somewhere quietly. Don't be at a busy cafe during your interview. That's not going to work well for you. Just those are like subtle differences, but in terms of the key things that you need to be doing for interview prep, it's all the same. I'm wearing very lazy pants right now. It's great.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Rhiannon, for sharing the knowledge, strategic and practical methods of cracking the interview code, and also answer these questions. And so we really appreciate, Rhiannon, for your time tonight, and thank you everyone for joining in the events. And we will upload the recording to our YouTube channel soon. Welcome to subscribe. If you do like our event, please refer to our meetup group to your friends and colleagues. Links can be found at comment area. And also our next coming up events. So it will be Thursday, 31st of August, 7 to 8 p.m. And the topic will be learning data analyst skills for business analysts. And it's for a self-learner's guide. So if you're really interested in this topic, you can sign in our meetup website, and we will see you on 31st of August. Thank you so much for your time. Have a lovely evening. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rhi. Thanks, everyone.